Teachers of Reddit. What secrets have you found out about your students that they don't know you know? I had a student a few years back, 9th grader, who lived with a classmate for a while. His mom threw him out of the house to live on the street. He didn't know all his teachers came together to get him new clothes, bedding, school supplies, etc. when his friend's family took him in. Poor kid was so scared after being on the street that first night that he slept in school because he felt safer. It was so upsetting I cried in Target and got him new PJs, slippers, and a fuzzy blanket for his new room, amongst other things, so he could feel cozy and safe. We sent him on every school trip, funded every dance ticket, got him a present for the holidays and said it was an award for something. He's doing okay now and I think the family that took him in even legally got custody. We also funded several tickets that kids won to prom for kids who couldn't afford to go. A group text would go out. A whole bunch of people would chip in. And we would get these kids to prom. My school is full of amazing staff who do this stuff a lot. I have some amazing co-workers and I'm so proud to call them my colleagues. Also, yes, she was reported to child services. She had a long history of cases and investigations with child services. And she struggled deeply with addiction. She never claimed him as a runaway. And no harm came to the family who took him in. I found out one of our marching band students was habitually late to after school practice of home games because his younger sister was constantly running away. He never told any of us and played it off like he was a big jerk. He took a lot of yelling from the marching instructor and various teachers for skipping class or being tardy. It wasn't until the principal called the parents about his behavior that we found out he was helping to look for his sister or prevent her for attempting to take her life again. He wanted to be treated like every other student and not receive special treatment from us. So we kept up the charade of yelling at him for lateness, etc. I was a student teacher during this time and would sit with him and just chat. Which is where I found this out the first time. He cared about his sister dearly and would start to tear up talking about her. He wanted her well. I recently found out which local dropout can get them shrooms as they planned a party while standing 4 feet away from me. I tutor high school students in AP classes and one of my students is definitely pregnant and her mom is completely oblivious. Like her mom dropped her off the other day and knowing I'm in the process of trying to lose a pretty significant amount of weight and it's starting to pay off. Asked me to talk to her about cutting down on carbs so she can get rid of her paunchy belly. First of all, no. That's not even remotely my job as your kid's private tutor and also she's very obviously pregnant and at this point you'd have to be blind not to notice. I mean she's at least 8 months along and isn't doing all that much to hide it. We know when you come to school stoned. We can't always do anything about it. But we can totally tell. I used to be meaner about my GED students sleeping in class until for some reason one time I just said, "You look tired today." He told me that he had just worked a double shift at his fast food job, Wendy's. I think it gave me a whole new perspective on the others I saw who were sleepy. Here's a funny one. My co-teacher was a real gentleman to everyone. When Wanda showed up after being absent for over a week, he said to her, "My Wanda, you look well rested." I then heard her say to her friend, "How he know I been arrested?" I don't know about secrets but I'm pretty sure a lot of students don't realize how much info about them is in our gradebook attendance system. If they've been in the district, I can see all their report cards from kindergarten up and any referrals they've ever gotten. I rarely bother reading them unless I'm curious concerned about a particular kid. But it's all there. I used to be a teaching assistant in a 3rd grade classroom. One day I was asked to grade their poetry assignments. They all got A's, and pull the best ones to be put on display at open house. There was one poem a student had wrote about their dog that had been hit and killed by a car the previous week that left me in tears. The student had been having some problems focusing in class. and the poem explained a lot. I never would have guessed that an 8-year-old was capable of writing such a moving and articulate poem. Or that their behavior problem stemmed from something so painful. It made me a lot more patient and understanding when interacting with kids. And the poem has a very special place in my heart. My stepdaughter is 10 and her mother's birthday was just the other week. She made her a card from just a notebook that had pictures and some writing. I looked over at my wife as she was reading it and she was just in tears. I do not remember exactly how it went, but it was telling her how great of a mom she was and how pretty she was, and then went on to thank her for overcoming so much and being the strongest person that she knows. Even when it was really hard. And saying that she knows that she did it for her and that she will never forget it. Her first husband used to be violent and abusive. She left with nothing but the kids. Moved states to where she knew nobody and started over and pulled her own life together with no child support or help for her 2 kids. She did everything for them. When she left, this daughter was 4. She never realized how much she saw and actually understood. In year 10, they're 13-14, my students get to go on camp for a week. But it costs $300 per kid. I had one student who seemed really excited to go until the permission slips got handed out. And the next day she returned it to me and signed and said that she didn't want to go anymore. I did some digging and some math and found out that her family couldn't afford it. She doesn't know. But my school has fundraised enough money to send about 7 kids to camp if money is an issue. But I could tell her family didn't want a handout. I'm her English teacher. So I organized a writing competition with a mystery prize and she won. I pulled her out of class and said, "Hey, your poem was absolutely beautiful, it was," and won the competition. I know you didn't want to go to camp. But the prize is the best bunk at camp. No charge. And I know we'd all love to have you there. She cried. And the next day she had a signed slip. I think it'll be great. I teach professional writing classes in college and I always give a talk about how important it is to Google your name periodically so you know what shows up in your search results and so you can deal with anything that you don't want people seeing, because it's common practice for potential employers to Google your name. After class one day a girl came up to me and asked if it's really true that employers will Google you as part of the job search process. I assured her it wasn't. Her eyes went really wide and she said okay. Thank you, and left. So naturally after she left I googled her name and the first thing that came up was her arrest record for trying to break into a warehouse while drunk. High school and junior high teacher in a rural town. About a year and a half ago. A 6th grade girl stays out of school for a couple days. She shows back up with long sleeves and what I assume were bandages. And she says she was burned by liquid fire. The newspaper ran a story the next day that said a man was arrested for throwing acid on his family when he went into a rage at the mom. Looked up the dad. And sure enough, it's this kid's dad. He threw acid all over his family. Again. This giant a-hole threw acid on his children in a temper tantrum. She didn't know a few teachers connected the dots. The girl was already a pretty messed up kid. She was a raging lunatic just waiting to explode over anything. She ended up getting expelled for attacking the principal. But honestly, all that she had gone through changed my opinion of how bad she could have turned out. Considering. Dear Lucas. You will never read this. I was your teacher's assistant in kindergarten. I was the one you told when your dad beat you. Sorry about all the CPS stuff. I know they didn't do anything. I know your mom lied. I know you got in trouble. I know with you family background, poverty level, and race. You are all prepped to be a terrible statistic. On Volcano Science Day, you cried on my shoulder and told me you will never be smart enough to be a scientist. You could be. But I know that it's a long shot. I know I did everything I could to make school feel like a safe, loving space. So that when you're older, and you wanna run from your situation, maybe you will run to school. I know that you are such a sweet boy. And I would adopt you in a heartbeat. Some days I pray you get put in the foster system. I'd have you in my family so fast. I know your life is going to be a struggle. I want you to know you're loved. In general, I don't think most students realize how much teachers know about them. In every classroom I've been in, I have been able to hear pretty much every conversation happening in the room from my desk. I know who my students have crushes on. It is so obvious. I hear all the school gossip. I witness friends talk badly about each other all the time. I know when they're high. I know about the events of the party last weekend. I know for sure that one of my students is cheating on his girlfriend, who is also my student. Well, one of my 6th grade girls told me today that the other 6th grade girl likes me. By the look on girl number 2's face. This was a secret I was not supposed to know. My nephew has been teaching French at my old school for a good 8 years now, and he wrote a lot of quick recaps and the like on the books he had his students read. He posted those on a website for students anonymously. You know, these websites where you could copy other people's assignments. He always said it was to both weed out the cheaters and help the students that were not as good in French. If they put in the effort to change it up, he would let it slide.